Missing drawing magical scenes with watercolors? Today you're in for an exciting lesson. Hello everyone, my name is Nicolas Tobias and I've been teaching watercolor painting for many years. Today I invite you to join me in creating a true masterpiece.
So if I just go in and maybe do a little outline of where I want this to be, and I'll be generous in leaving some highlights and stuff just to out the separate out the leaves a bit better. This one comes in like that. Just another um, word on that on using pencil. Yeah, it depends on your style as well because sometimes if you're quite an abstract artist and you go with the flow, you just see how it works out and you change a lot in the process, then actually having hard pencil marks underneath is not going to be very helpful because either you'll leave them and then you'll see them, or you have to stay true to them and you won't do exactly what you want to do. So it plays a part in deciding whether to use a pencil or not. Okay, so you can see that I've just done a very nice light outline. I've left a bit of white paper there in the middle, and I want to get the darkest dark into that area just to contrast it and see what happens there. But let's go in with this now. We've gone from the very light, we're going to go into sort of a darker pink. We can just mix it up. So that was wet on dry, and now we're going wet into wet. So we're going wet paper, and I'm adding in a wet wash into that to create some washes, so it's going to spread out into that. Um, if I go stronger here, so I'm trying to be mindful not to go in and wet all of what I did before. I want to leave some of that white area because it will then be good. But I'm also conscious now that I've got a lot of water on in this area, so I want to get thicker pigment in. I want to create those nice variations in tone on while everything's wet. So I'm coming in, I'm just seeing where I can leave. And that actually was probably a bit too much pigment. So what you can do is just with a bit of your towel, dry this off. And I just want to remove a little bit of this like that. So that's called lifting. Essentially taking off a bit of what you put in with a mostly dry brush. So we've gone from that very light bit, we've gone down into not really a mid-tone yet. It's still quite light. So then let's just build that up, build into it. We've got now the next level, thicker pigment, maybe a bit of blue in this. Let's get a bit more of a purpley, pinky color. Remember, we'll do the shadow a bit later, but there can still be a bit of contrast even in this first bit. Maybe we'll do that in the middle of these petals. Let's just get a bit of maybe a bit more red into it. Rose madder, I should say. And there's some moments within this reference they're pretty red, like in the middle. That's very quite red there. So what I feel like doing actually is adding a bit of other red. So if you've got a red on your palette, I've got um Pure Scarlet. It doesn't look like it's Pure Scarlet because it's got a bit of other color on top of it, but that is a red. So you got any type of red, you got cadmium red or Pure Scarlet or whatever. This is actually just you don't have to at all. You can just keep on with the rose madder. But if you've got any other red on your palette, maybe just add a little smidge into it. That would work. So maybe I can do that as well, just as a spontaneous addition, just to create a bit of added complexity. Now, because of you're going wet into wet, you've got a bit of time. So it's quite nice. It's tightening up, it's drying, but not too much. And I really like that about working wet into wet, when you're trying to build within from light into a bit more of a dark. So I've got a little bit of red there, which might, if I can just add that in to the bottom, see that? I'm just trying to add in, if I bring this up to you, you can see how sort of reddy that is actually. Um, so if I can just create a bit of that, not too red, otherwise, 'cause it's more of a very vibrant pink. But I feel like the rose madder wasn't quite hitting that level. Okay, so we just
Painting with watercolors is truly an enjoyable experience that's hard to resist. However, I'd like to make a brief announcement. If you liked painting with me, I'd love for you to join my free workshop where I'll share even more watercolor techniques. Just check out the link in the video description. I'm excited to see you all there. Let's keep creating beautiful art together.
wet into wet, building up, moving down that spectrum, that range here as well. So what we'll then do is get a bit of that really dark. Um, what's happening here? Let's just do that. So thick pigment. Let's just build this up a bit more. Really get that redness in. It's almost like an orangey pink, so I could have gone the other way and done a bit of orange in there. But let's see how that works out. Now, so full range from light to dark, and maybe from the lightest bit and the darkest bit. Well, how do we do that? Well, this is all now wet and melting in some very nice light transparent parts. Can we get a really thick amount of pigment to get the darkest dark in? I'm going to do it in a bit of like a dark brown, I would say. And it's hardly any pigment on this. And we're just going to try and create that sense of realism in the middle there. Now I've done I've done it really thick there, and it should be spreading out, but because there's hardly any water, it's not really going to spread out much, which is a good thing because it gives you more control. So with the dry brush, what we can do is we can just give it a little nudge and just spread it up the leaves. If I can just bring that up for you. I'm just giving it a little nudge, like come over here, just because it's all wet anyway. And maybe I can get rid of this bit of light there. I don't need that. And then see if it can nudge up this one there. Nudge is a very technical term. I'm just kidding. It's not. Um, okay. See that? Really dark. Maybe I can go reintroduce that real dark bit in there. So that's sort of this. You can see how much we're creating some different types of light and dark within this what could have been a very flat wash if we did it the other way, which is just mix up a straight pink. This is drying up well. I think let's just get this green in, this blue, and then we finish off with the shade. So let's go for a bit of light green, and we can just leave a bit of this leave a bit of white within that in places. Maybe not here because it gets quite dark. But certainly in here, we can just sort of imply that things get quite interesting. And another little trick, you can do some nice sort of flicks. Now, if you want to create a bit of control, you just find out where you want it and just tap in a right, more controlled space, and then you find that you have some nice flicks like that. If you did it all the way through, then it can be a bit tricky, but if you do this, I mean, your hand's getting dirty, but at least it's going mostly in this area. Okay, so now in light, let's get some strong contrast into it already. Now this isn't the strongest you can get, so I'm going to go full in. Um, I didn't really answer that completely because the question was how do you make the green? So blue and yellow is how I make the green. And what I do is yeah, I'll add in quite a lot of yellow, and then I'll just add in the blue to make it darker where I want. So I sort of yellow's the base, and then I move into the blue. And if I need it even darker, I'll go Payne's gray. And I try not to mix completely on the palette. I want to create some color mixing on the paper by not having my brush fully mixed. So what I place on the paper. Oops, I sort of kissed that a bit, but there we go. There we are. Look, see how strong that is? That contrast creates the light. You know, this just pops now because of it. So if I just do that and just let that come in, and maybe here as well. And this all you really need is a bit of that strength because the rest can be really quite light here. Just bring that light out. And I'm not, I haven't drawn this out. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm just playing around, just seeing if I can look at the reference and see if I can take away some of the dark moments here and replicate them. I know this is dark as well, but well, let's frame it, but leave that like that. Okay. And lastly, maybe a bit of blue. Trying to get the three primaries in, it does actually, it's quite nice. I know we haven't got like a strong yellow in, but there's yellow in this green, so I don't have to be, so exact, but um, and then maybe it shouldn't have such a straight finish to it either. There we go. That's all right. Okay, so this is pretty dry now. So the last thing to do is just to finish up. And when I did the lifting before, well, I think this is a bit too strong. Lifted. So you can use a piece of tissue and just do a bit of that. I mean, when it's wet, pretty wet, if you do that, it can create quite a nice effect. If it's very dry already and then you try and do that, it's not going to work. But if it's really quite wet and you just have a bit of this and go in with a few strokes only, you actually create quite a nice sort of wispy effect there. So I think that works well, and it contrasts well with some of this real thickness in here, which I think we can just explore even more, just really strong effects there. Yeah, and finishing off with a bit of this. Okay, so last thing, those little shadows on the petals. Let's do that. A bit of purple. but a pinky purple. So rose madder and a bit of cobalt. So I'm mixing that in. And in this stage, just you can be patient really with yourself. If you're not mixing the right color, don't just go in anyway. Take your time to find it. As long as you're happy moving into it, you won't have any regrets. But if you rush in without mixing it well, then it can not work out very well. Is this dry? Is it dry? Sort of. I think it'll be all right. Rule 101, don't go into the second wash until it's fully dry, which I potentially am breaking as we speak, but maybe not. We'll see. Okay, so yeah, just creating the shadow, and you can vary it in strength of tone, and also vary it in color. Um, Now, if you use the sort of the hairs on your brush and just sort of create some sort of thinner lines heading up, you're just going to be creating some sort of sense of realism there, which is very, very nice and welcome. So let's do this. And you can just vary the amount of blue that you use, vary the amount of, vary the amount of pink and blue, essentially. Um, just get more pinky for this bit. Okay, so like that. Pink. So that's what I was talking about with sort of warm and cool shadows. We've got a bit more blue in this shadow and a bit more pink in this one. And that difference creates the realism that we are looking for, because your eye will pick up on it. And here as well, it cuts through. Taking a bit of time with this, but I think it's worth it. And there's actually a really nice line there that I'll just do that like that. There we go. And finally, maybe a bit less detail on this one. I mean, less coverage of shadow on this one, like that. Okay, so that's layering. That's adding an additional layer to sort of create that vibrancy, or sort of, I guess, that realism, I should say. But you are adding more shadow in, and therefore generating more light. Just wanted to get rid of a bit of this. I felt like it was too much. And again, this is a bit of lifting going on there. But yeah, I think that's working quite well. And I think I can say that that's finished. The last maybe a few little splatters, but yeah, I think we're good.
Thank you so much, Nick. We have thank yous in the comment from Christina, who writes, "Thank you for this lesson. I really like the mix of techniques to get something special. Wonderful, wonderful." If we wanted to create that middle thingy that pops out even more detailed, how would you have gone about that if you were looking for a more hyper realistic middle part of the flower, the little
Yeah.
thingy thingy?
Well, it's funny you should say that. I looked at it, I was like, wait a minute, I have not finished this flower. So why don't we do that together? Because while this is still wet, what you can do is a you can get your nail, and I was looking for a piece of card, but I'll just use my nail. Now you essentially scrape a little bit of light. So you see that I've just scraped all the way from the center a bit of light. There we go. That's the first step. I mean, it does move a bit more this way, but it doesn't really matter. Um, and then, I mean, now that we've got a bit more light, we've got a little bit more opportunity to build it. Um, let's get a slightly different pink, just to give it a little bit of oomph. So it's a little bit more of a reddy pink, but not too red. And then we just come round to the side of it, like that. And this is something where if you have lost too much light, you can definitely regain it with a bit of Chinese white, which is, I use this Chinese white, but you can use any sort of more opaque white. Um, and you can recreate it, and we can actually do that as well once this is finished, just to make it pop, make the light come in. But once you've got that, once you've got that bit of stalking, I guess the next thing is just to get a bit of yellow, thick paint, very thick paint, and you can just add some paint into that. What you might need to do is go in with some white paint, create those highlights a bit, and I'll zoom in so that you can see better in a bit. And what I do think is lacking is a bit of contrast here to sort of frame it a bit better, like that. So if I zoom in now, you should be able to detect it. There we go. And of course, if you want to exaggerate even further, you can do a bit more of a dark bit underneath that. So maybe a dark purple. Um, so play around with the light. You have light on one side, dark on the other, and now that it just seems a bit stronger. I know it's quite subtle in the reference, but sometimes you need to exaggerate in order for things to come a bit better. Um, all right. Okay, that should do it.
I hope this video was helpful for you. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel where we assist all individuals in mastering drawing skills and immersing themselves in the wonderful world of art. I'd love you to join me in my free workshop, so follow the link in the video description, and I will see you there soon.